former SDSU basketball player turned entrepreneur in the sports industry, so let's give her all a round of applause.
It's a great platform and way for you guys to connect and stay connected and prepare for what comes after this. And so really, like, be proud of yourselves for taking advantage of this. But the things that are happening, like the networking events and stuff like that, show up, get business cards, even if it just says San Diego State student, like, take advantage of those opportunities because they'll go a long way. So happy to be here. I spoke at the summit last year. It was really cool. Met a lot of people. Actually met a couple of you guys there. Came up and introduced yourselves. And, you know, when I got asked to come back and speak, obviously I was really excited because it's my alma mater and, you know, go Aztecs, all that stuff. I want to tell you guys my journey, my process, and kind of how I got to where I am now. But just remember that that's my journey. Like, whatever you guys can take from it, great, but everyone here is on their own journey. You guys are gonna have your own story. And I think a common misconception is that people look at the success and you guys don't, and people don't see like what it took to get there, you know? And so just remember that wherever you are now, like, that's where you're supposed to be. About me and how I started playing basketball when I was in the 5th grade, and I remember they asked me, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to change the world. And I didn't say I wanted to be an architect or a pilot. I said I wanted to change the world. And there was something in that I held on to. I didn't know how I was going to change the world. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I had a sense of purpose at a very, very young age. And so I want to encourage everyone to tap into what makes you guys tick, what makes you go. And so when I was in the 5th grade, I started playing basketball, and I remember on accident, my friend, she was like the only girl, and she was like, Jerica, I don't want to be the only girl going out and shooting free throws. Can you come out and shoot with me? I was like, sure, why not? I don't even like basketball, but whatever. So I go, and it's a free throw shooting contest, and I make like 2 out of 5. And so I made it to the next round, and I remember I hit, the first round I made, you got 2 rounds, and you got 12 shots each round. And I made 1 out of 12 the first time. And I mean, you guys, I'm telling you, I was like throwing it over the backboard. It was horrible. And my dad takes me outside, and he's like, Jerica, do you want to win? I was like, duh, like, what are you talking about? And he's like, okay, you know, stand like this, put your elbow like this, and go like that. That was it. I mean, it was probably a 2-minute conversation. And I go back in, and I make 11 out of 12. And I'll never forget that, because I was like, oh, wow, like, I like to win. And I think that was the first time that I was like, oh, okay, if I do, you know, if I'm coachable and I do what I'm supposed to do, I can win, even if I'm not that good, right? And so being really in tune with my purpose allowed me to be successful in other ways, and sports was a part of that. So full transparency, even though I was aware of my purpose, I still felt like I was searching for something, right? And in searching, your process can become hard. Knowing my purpose made my process feel lighter. Times where I felt like I was deterring, I would always come back because I knew that my purpose wasn't going to go anywhere. I knew that I wanted to change the world, right? Like, I knew that I wanted to leave my footprint some way, somehow, and that was who I am. That wasn't necessarily what I did, right? And so everybody has their process, right? Going on our process. And a common misconception is that we're supposed to come out and be like, we're supposed to know where we're supposed to go. We're supposed to know where we're supposed to be. In high school, especially as a basketball player, and I was a really good basketball player, Jerica, where are you going to college? I don't know. Okay, what do you want to major in? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, you need to know what you're going to major in before you get there. Okay, but I really don't know, you know? And so it was like, when I got to college, I had to, as an athlete, you have to be a certain % done with your major by the time you graduate. And so I had to declare it quickly. But I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Like, I had no clue. Like, basketball was what I did. That's all I knew how to do. A major key there for me was just be where you're at. You can only be where you're at. You can't be farther along than where you are. You can't go backwards. You can just be where you are. That was a big part for me in going through my process and still remembering to be purposeful in whatever I was doing. I want to go through my journey in phases. Being an athlete was such a huge part of my identity, but I was so dedicated and diligent and focused in being a basketball player. I was so present. And there was something in being competitive and pushing myself past my limits, right? There's things that happen in sports that I was able to take to my professional career. I was able to compete at a very, very high level. So I played in high school. I played here in San Diego. We won 3 CIF championships. I got all these accolades in high school. Got a full basketball scholarship to San Diego State, UCLA first, and then here, transferred home and finished here. We won 2 Mountain West championships while I was here. Like, it was, there was a lot of accolades, but what it taught me was if you give everything you have to whatever it is that you're doing, like, you're gonna win. You are so much in control of this winning that I started to separate myself, because I go through life and I'm like, everybody works hard. Everybody doesn't work hard. And everybody doesn't work as hard as you do. And that was something that, because I wasn't the most talented, I was like, okay, I may not be the most talented, but I want to win. And in order to win, I have to compete at a very high level. And in order to compete at a very high level, I have to prepare, and I have to be ready, and I have to be focused, right? And so competing at such a high level on the basketball platform in sports, really, I was able to translate that into my professional career. I was entering the regular job market. I hated it. I did not like to work. It wasn't that I didn't like to work. I had a very hard work ethic. I didn't want to do what I didn't want to do, right? And so going back into the process, it was like, so I'm coming out, I'm a Division I athlete. I'm like, oh man, I need to come out of this and be exactly where I want to be, except that's not a part of my process. So I'm out, I work, I think I was a after school counselor, and then I went into like this data entry job, which was like, mind numbing, you guys. I was there 8 hours typing in the same numbers, and I'm like, how do people do this? And some people have to do it, some people do it. I don't feel like it was what I was supposed to be doing. I got fired. I think I had worked at data entry, receptionist, enterprise, Northwestern Mutual. I got fired from all of them. If I didn't get fired, I quit, and I really quit because I knew they were going to fire me. Like, it was, I just did not like being there. I was at this receptionist job, and the coworker that I was working with, she had been there for about 2 years, and she was training me. And she did a lateral move, so she was training me, and she went to, do something else. And it wasn't a job where you couldn't grow in that job. And I remember her saying to me, I want to be here for 20 years, 15, 20 years, and then go get my nursing degree. And I remember looking at her like, you're going to wait 20 years to go do what you want to do? Like, why would you do that? And I didn't say it like that, because here I am in this reception. She's probably like, shut up, So, but I remember thinking, like, it is so easy to fall victim to your comfort zone, and so hard to step outside of that, because when you enter that regular job market, it's so like survival based. I remember thinking, I have to survive. I have to make enough money to live. But I'm looking at this woman, and I'm like, I don't want to have that mentality. I don't want to have a limited mentality, right? Because if I have a limited mentality, I'm gonna stay here, and I don't want to stay here. And I think it was in that moment that I understood the power of my mind, and how that could hurt me in my process and pigeonhole me. Even in those moments where I was working these dead-end jobs, I still stayed in touch with who I was as a person, right? Like, who you are can become what you do if you really know who you are, if you spend time in that. And I think that while I was working those jobs, it was like, okay, but you still want to help people. Even when you're here, you still want to help people. And because I was in tune with that, I think I always coached basketball while I was working those dead-end jobs, because it was a way to fuel my passion. Like, I needed to wake up and feel like there was a reason why I was waking up. And I think because I held on to that, it enabled me to catapult a little bit later. Transitioning from corporate America to entrepreneur, which is what these things are, I worked at Northwestern Mutual in Dallas. And when I moved to Dallas, it was very purpose-driven, right? So I remember I was coming on a plane. I was on a plane with my son. It was my son's second birthday. And we were coming back from Chicago. And I remember thinking, go to Dallas. And I was like, what the heck? Like, it was so random. I don't know anybody in Dallas. I don't know. So I got home, and I'm like I said, I was just in touch. I was in tune. I was in tune with my purpose, and I didn't necessarily know how I was going to get there. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should look into Dallas. I called the one person I knew in Dallas, Derek, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about relocating. Do you know of anything? Like, do you know of any jobs? And he goes, did you choose Dallas, or did Dallas choose you? And I was like, that's a great question. Dallas chose me, but who asked that question? So he was like, you know what, I got the perfect thing. Long story short, I had that conversation on October 8th. By October 31st, I was moved in. They had shipped all my stuff. They had got me an apartment. I had a full-time job. I had a coaching job. I mean, it was like, so I was like, dang, this is weird when I kind of just let life do what it does. Things can happen. So I get there, And it's fulfilling being a basketball coach, but I'm at Northwestern Mutual, and guys, I'm like getting in trouble because I am not focused on my job. I'm like on my phone, I'm texting, I'm doing things that I want to be doing on my phone, like helping bridge the gap between sports and community. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And I remember my CEO called me in, and she's like, Jerica, you've been getting in trouble. And, full accountability, full transparency, I wasn't focused. And I'm like, no, you're right. I'm not. And she goes, if you're going to be here, you need to be here. And I think that lesson was very valid. It's like, if I'm going to make the decision to be here, if I'm going to make the decision to be an administrative assistant in Northwestern Mutual, I need to be present here. I need to give it all I got. If I'm playing basketball, I need to give it all I got. I know good things can come when I give things all I got. I'm like, I hear you, CEO person, but I'm just not here. And, I'm trying my best, right? And she goes, I feel like you're holding yourself back. And, and I credit her to this day. Like, thank you. Because she's like, I feel like I'm going to, turn on the TV one day and see you. And I'm like, man, me too. It's crazy that you think that. And so she says, if you want to continue working here, we just need you to be present because other people would kill to have this job. I was sitting there and I was calculating the hours that I was working at this job that was unfulfilling for me and how much I was making. Full transparency, I was making like $34,000 a year, which is like $15 an hour, like before taxes. I'm giving this job like 10 hours a day of my life. I'm like, if I do what I want to do, and at the time that was like bridge the gap between sports and community, right? Like work with professional athletes and help leverage their community visibility. I feel like I can walk down the street and make $15 an hour. Like, that's how I felt. Like, it was this revelation that I had that it didn't make sense. So when she called me into the office, that revelation happened on that same day. So at the end of the conversation, she goes, if you're gonna be here, be here. And I'm like, you know what? I quit. Now I have the freedom to do what I want to do. And if I fall, whatever, like I fall and I get back up. But I think that's what basketball taught me how to do too. It's like you're gonna go through stuff, right? You're gonna fall. You're gonna detour. Like there's things that are gonna get thrown your way. And so, but for me though, the bigger the risk, I felt like the bigger the reward was gonna be. Business and sports, right? So when I decided to start Jace, it was actually, I lost my my high school point guard, Genevieve, to breast cancer, and she was 26. And she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer on April 17th, and she passed away May 7th of that same year. And losing her, it was like this, this moment of you don't have a lot of time, and like life is what it is what we make it. But it was, I think that was that driving force for me. It was like, put everything you have into this. I didn't know what Jace was gonna be. I didn't know what Jace was. I knew who I was, and I knew what my purpose was in leaving my mark and helping people. But I did not necessarily know how I was gonna do that. And obviously, I was in sports, so I had relationships in sports. But I got into entertainment when a middle school friend of mine said, Jerica, hey, start this tour. Do this tour for me. Set this tour up. Like, I want to do a high school tour. I was like, oh, okay, I think I can figure that out. We ended up doing like a 13 school tour in like 6 weeks. And then he started calling me his publicist. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, right? Like, this is back when like public relations, I think it's a major now. Like, it wasn't even you had to be in it to know what it was. And I'm like, oh, a publicist, okay, let me research what they do. And so I started doing that. And then people started coming to me. I was good at it, right? And I'm like, this is helping people in its own way. And so then naturally athletes started to come to me. So funny story, bringing it full circle. When I was in Dallas and I quit that Northwestern Mutual job, the coach on the men's side at the school that I was coaching at, also Coach Julius Randle, who plays with the Lakers. He's like, Jerica, he needs a publicist. Because when I quit, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna put on this publicist hat and hopefully make some money so I don't drown. And he's like, oh, Julius needs a publicist. I think it was like 2 weeks later I signed that contract and got Julius when he was coming out of Kentucky, and then he went 7th in the NBA draft. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a sports publicist person. So my narrative started as this sports publicist, but my narrative has changed over time. So what I went from being a publicist and working specifically with professional I started getting more into the business development side. So now Jace is a consultancy for strategic partnerships, branding, community relations, public relations, all under this business development umbrella, right? Under that, I've been able to utilize a lot of the relationships that I've built and had over the years. And really my testimony is I've never had to solicit any client, right? Like I've never had to go after any client. Every single client that I've obtained have all come to me. And I'm without a doubt can say confidently that it was because it was purpose driven. Not once when I started this, which is funny because I think about working that hourly job, that was money driven. This wasn't. And I make more doing this than I ever would have in the stuff that I didn't want to do. Jace has really turned into a phenomenal like sports entity business. I'm structuring it as like an agency where I wake up every day and I help people in the sports industry. That's what I do. And there wasn't a job title for that, right? Like it wasn't, I remember job searching and looking at these job descriptions and I was trying to conform to those job descriptions. But it was like, I don't want to conform. I want to be who I am. There was nothing that said what Jace does, right? Like there was nothing that could describe me and who I was and what I wanted to do. Or stay encouraged in your process, in that you may not have all of the answers. Know who you are. Your narrative can change. A job can fit to you. So and limit myself with, define whatever it is that you do. It was like, no, I'm going to lead with who I am, and I'm going to be focused in that, and I'm going to be diligent in that, and I'm going to learn everything there is to know organically, but also be intentional about learning what there is to know about the sports industry in general and how I can penetrate certain markets. So where I'm at now, it obviously took a lot to get here, but I'm 29. I'm young still, and what I'm realizing is a lot of people don't want to take that risk to really doing what they want to do, because when you get to a certain level, more is required of you. Basketball was going really well, and I remember I got Player of the Year my junior year, and I'll say this, it's a thing to be afraid of success, right? So when I got Player of the Year my junior year, my senior year, I was kind of like, this is a lot of pressure to stay here, because now I got to win Player of the Year again. Right? Now I have to put in more work to sustain this level of success. And it was scary. And I see people do it every single day, where they'll sabotage their own self because they don't want to be in that space, right? And so I had to not be afraid of what that level of success held. But I also knew that I wasn't going to get access to that level of success until I was ready. There was times where I felt like, oh man, I should be making, I don't know, whatever, $100,000. But I wasn't in the space mentally to be making $100,000 because I couldn't be trusted with it. If I would have gotten a position or had built my business up to make that much money, I would have failed because I was not ready to sustain that level of success. I wasn't ready to put in the work and the focus and all of that and everything that was needed to sustain that success, right? And so now, where I'm at right now, I have such a long way to go. My mentality now is when ceilings become floors, right? You create this limitless mentality for yourself where it's like, oh, I was in this season, I was here, I maximized this season, and now what was my ceiling now becomes my floor. Right? And I'm able to apply that even with money, right? Where it's like, oh man, $80,000 is a lot of money. Until $80,000 is not a lot of money. Till you get $80,000 and you're like, oh, okay, no, I don't want that. I want more than that. And that's what, and nothing's wrong with making money. I don't know if that's a little gem for you guys. People have this stigma attached, oh, if you make X amount, make as much money as you want. There's money out there to be made. People are like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. Actually, it does, and it's accessible to everybody, right? People pigeonhole themselves. No, give me all the money. The heck, I'm not gonna turn that down. Anyways, so that's my journey. Whatever journey you're in right now, whatever season you're in, be in that season. Know it's your journey. This is another one. Don't compare yourself to someone who's quote unquote made it, right? Not everybody has the same starting point. But I'll never forget, like somebody came to me and said, "Oh, Jerica, you're gonna be the next Oprah." No, I'm not. Don't say that. Don't say that to me. I don't want to be her. I want to be the first me. That's who I want to be. But I'm like, that puts me in a frame of mind of like, if I don't get to where she's at, then I failed. Or if I don't do exactly what she's doing, then I failed, right? Jerica wanted to be in Forbes 30 under 30. I'm 29. I didn't make it, right? Turning 30 this year. And there was something that existed within that title of Forbes 30 under 30 that was like, man, if I did that, I made it, right? And then I didn't get it. And I was like, dang, I suck now. Like, something I didn't do right. I was like really like discouraged when I didn't make it. I won San Diego Businesswoman of the Year last year in 2017, right? And I remember being in the, this is so funny. This is so funny. I remember, it's not that funny, but for me. So I remember being in the awards ceremony and I didn't tell anybody I won. I didn't tell anybody I won because to me it wasn't a big deal. You know why? Because it wasn't Forbes 30 under 30. That's an honest moment right there for you guys because I did not even know that in my own mind that I felt like that. So I was like, oh, this is little, right? Like, this is small. I don't want to tell anybody about this. This isn't Forbes. This is super small. I don't want to put it out. And I go and, my dad and my mom come and they're like, Jace, that's a big deal. And I get up and I look around and I give a little, 5-second speech. And when I get off the stage, I'm like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. You accomplished something, right? And it's like, just because you aren't Oprah at the age, like, and my mom would say this to me, like, I'm like, Mom, you made, I don't know, $100,000 when you were 29. If I don't make $100,000 by the time I'm 29, I suck. Like, I'm not as good. And it's like, what the heck? No, you're competing against yourself, right? Like, that's the only competition that you have. You're competing against yourself. So anyway, that was one of my keys is like, don't compare yourself to the people. Just don't compare yourself to anybody. The other thing is there's room for everyone to be successful. I think this is a lost art, especially in sports, all right? So in the sports industry, it's very cutthroat. It's very like, there can only be one. There can only be one all-star journalist. There can only be, one Stuart Scott. There can only be one Kari Champion. There can only be one LeBron James, which, kind of. But regardless, don't be discouraged. There's room for everybody. I was having this conversation with my friend the other day, and he's actually a former NFL player, and we started a business together. And, I'm sitting there and I'm talking to him, and we have a similar mentality where it's like, we don't want to identify like our competition. Or you guys can't do that because so-and-so did that. Okay, can you give us their number so we can talk to them? We want to collaborate with the people who are in the industry to lift each other up, right? Because there's room for everybody. And I think that could be a limiting mentality where it's like, just because someone else does it doesn't mean that you can't do it or that you can't do it better or that you guys can't do it together. I want to say that to encourage you guys to take off the limit when it comes to being in the industry. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be discouraged if other people are doing what you want to do. Number 3, everyone can't come. Everyone can't come. If you want to, climb this mountain, like, it's going to be hard, and there will be people in your life that taper off, and you have to be okay with that, right? Like, hold on, no, I have to say this better. Think of a tournament bracket, right? I'm the 1 seed. I'm the 1 seed in the tournament. Then you got the 8 seed in the tournament, right? Okay, the 1 seed is the 1 seed for a reason. The 1 seed is the 1 seed because they worked their butt off to get where they are. They have prepared their bodies, they prepared their minds, they have competed at the highest level. They are ready to compete. First round, they get a bye. They play the weakest team the next round because they earned that, right? The person who's the 8th seed, not to say that they can't get to the championship, right? Everybody has a shot. Everybody has a shot. I'm sure they work just as hard. Not the same team, right? If the 1 seed and the 8 seed combine teams, they're going to meet somewhere in the middle. The 1 seed is not going to have the 1 seed caliber anymore. And that's what I had to tell my friend. I'm like, hey, dude, look, I can't be the 4. You're the 1. I'm the 1, you're the 8. I'm not dropping myself to a 4 because you're going to meet people where they're at. You're going to meet people where they're at. And you're going to lift him up or them, and they're going to bring you down. I can't. And it was so easy for me to say no. I got to a point in my life where it's like, I understand that everybody cannot come with me, and I understand what doing that, how that can hinder, and that season will change. And just because certain people don't come with you, and it could be your mama, like, sometimes I'll be like, look, Dad, it's actually my dad, my mom's with me, we here. My dad, I'll be like, Dad, there's just certain things I can't talk to you about. Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna buy you a house when I get there, but I can't take you with me. I can't take you with me, because you're gonna slow up my process, and if you want this house sooner, like, leave me alone, right? Just is what it is. Anyways, everybody can. The last thing I'll leave you guys with is, what I've learned really in my whole process is to work smarter and not harder, right? People say team don't sleep, team no sleep, that's dumb, sleep. Like, get your rest. Stupid. Like, I don't think to say that. Like, it is absolute, it will take you so long if you try to go through life as a zombie, right? Like, you need to be sharp, you need to stay on it, like, and if you read like successful people's autobiographies, whatever, they go to sleep early and they wake up before anyone else because your mind is the most sharp in the morning. That's just an example of working smarter, not harder. I remember a time when I was working like 100 hours a week, and I'm like, I was exhausted, and I felt like I was on this hamster wheel, right? And then now, hey, for real, like, and I'm like kind of like always working. Like, I can pick up my phone right now and probably do some work stuff. I could probably negotiate a deal on my phone right now, but I probably only really work 25 hours a week because I figured out a way. One, you put yourself in the right circles. That's the first thing, because when you put yourself in circles who are up here, all of their resources now become yours, and you have access to all that they have access to, right? The power of networking. Relationships are valuable. That's one thing that I learned in terms of working smarter, not harder. I have a sense of balance. I spend time with my family. I travel, right? Like, I read all the time. Go to sleep. Sorry. Work smarter, not harder. It's a thing. When you put time into the balance, it pays off. So that's all I got, guys. It's your journey. Hope you guys took something. Stay encouraged, stay intentional about your life before your job. Your job should be a reflection of who you are, right? Your job should not be all that you do. Like, be purposeful. That's all I got.